Welcome back. And the next guest for today is Safa Ghnaim from Tactical Tech, an international NGO based in Berlin that engages with citizens and civil society organizations to explore and mitigate the impacts of technology on society. Safa leads Tactical Tech's successful Data Detox Kit, a project which we'll also talk about during the talk. Welcome. Have a good talk.
Thank you so much, Ksenia, and thank you to Graphic Days Torino for inviting me to talk. And I also would like to thank, of course, everyone in the audience, and definitely to the speakers, Corinne and Nina. I really learned a lot from what they had to say. I took a whole page of notes. I'm sure the audience did too. So I just really wanted to honor and appreciate all of the fantastic points that you made too. I'm going to share my screen. I do also have a presentation, but I just want to make sure that you can see it. So I will put it on the full screen, and then that means that I can't see the comments. So hopefully you can see it. So I'm Safa from Tactical Tech, and I just kind of want to run through a number of different ways in which the organization I work for, Tactical Tech, has, in my opinion, innovated digitally, artistically, and also built communities and also communications, because I think communications are communication tools and ways of connecting with people is, of course, a really important piece of community building. So let me just start briefly with telling you a bit about Tactical Tech, so you know a little where my perspective is coming from here. So as Ksenia mentioned, we're an international nonprofit that engages with citizens and civil society organizations to explore and mitigate the impacts of technology on society. And although I'm based in Berlin, this international piece is really important to us. Because it's difficult to really grasp what we do, the intersects of our projects, because some of them seem quite different. And so finding those points of intersection is important. I think this sums it up quite clearly, that our vision is a world where digital technologies can contribute to a more equitable, democratic, and sustainable society. To enable this change, our mission is to investigate how digital technologies impact society and individual autonomy, using our findings to create practical solutions for citizens and civil society actors. So this practical solutions will also come up a lot. That's why I emphasized it. Before I go into specific projects, I actually wanted to do this presentation in sort of a non-linear way. I wanted to start us positioning where we are right now in the current situation. In mid-March is when here in Berlin, of course, we really went into quite a serious sort of lockdown. And at that point, as an organization, we had to really rethink how it is that we can achieve our goals in the current situation. And, we have a variety of goals. We're a nonprofit, so we also have grant deliverables, which all are connected to our premise, to our visions of not only the organization as a whole, but specific projects. Moving online, especially when we're focused a lot on digital privacy, data privacy. And when you move online, there's a risk that some of that is lost. And especially when we're talking about, creating camps and workshops, which are really safe spaces for anyone to join, who maybe even if that person does not feel safe in their situation, they can come into this room that we're meeting in and they can know we're not taking pictures, we're not recording, we're not, writing down names. This is really an open space. And because we're moving online, of course, or when we moved online, I think this, depending on what tools people are using, especially when we're going to a conference and conferences are using different tools. A lot of time they're using Zoom. A lot of time they're using, like Microsoft Office Teams or whatever. And a lot of those concerns come back up. And as an organization, something that I appreciate that Tactical Tech does is for lack of better term, we practice what we preach. So, we really promote privacy, digital privacy, and digital security practices. And that is what we do. And, we typically, for example, with video conferencing, we use tools like Jitsi Meet or this other tool called Big Blue Button. We use password managers. We really do our due diligence to make sure that we're not creating data traces and that we're sort of mitigating harms rather than creating harms when we're creating these spaces for people to meet and discuss and learn. And so the reason I have this screen here, technology is stupid. One of the directors at Tactical Tech, Marek Tuzinski, he wrote this article and published it sometime in the end of March. And, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I brought up here in the next few slides some quotes with it, which I think are very helpful. And I'll kind of include my understanding of it, my sort of translation of it too, in my mind. But of course, I don't want to put those words in his mouth. So I really recommend that you read this article if it sounds interesting to you. So it's called Technology is Stupid, How to Choose Tech for Remote Working. And of course, this came at a time, like I said, when many organizations were dealing with the same thing as us, going online, and suddenly everything is online, all these very private and sensitive meetings as well. All of this important data and information. And what I like about this article is that it's called Technology is Stupid. And I think what's important about that is, a lot of times technology is positioned in society by, the media or just simply by the advertisements, by Apple and Samsung or whatever, that this tech is so high tech, so smart. And indeed, these algorithms, these technologies have been built with a real expertise in certain areas. But in fact, it's not that the technology is infallible. The technology, as we've known it and as we've seen it played out across the world, is biased. It's exactly as the previous speakers had noted, is that technology mirrors the issues which already exist in our societies. So, an algorithm, for example, is not neutral. And really, I'm just echoing the same things that were just mentioned by the previous speakers. And so in this article, I think it is quite long, but it's really thorough. It's a very good deep dive into, what the technology choices we have right now are, especially as organizations, and what kind of the trade-offs are. So just to pull a few quotes here. So the idea that there are tools that would always work for everyone, everywhere, require no extra knowledge and zero additional infrastructure, are fair and just, and protect users at all times is a dream that has not yet come true. And I think, when you see some of this technology that we use, there are really fantastic, there's a variety of options of privacy conscious tools, open source technology, like truly end-to-end encrypted. We do see that sometimes there are these trade-offs where maybe it's not very easy to jump into right away. Maybe you join a video conference in Big Blue Button or Jitsi Meet, for example, and you need like, a couple minutes to just figure out where all the buttons are, what all the buttons do, and then you're good to go. Whereas maybe if you jump in a call on Zoom, maybe it's a little bit easier to get used to it. But of course, there are trade-offs. So there are two ways we at Tactical Tech approach the problem of data control and technology choices. One is mitigating or making it less bad. And the second approach is about a change of mindset, or short-term pain, long-term gain. And really, I paraphrase part of it. It goes into a lot more depth in the article. But I think, if you are either looking to for better choices at your organization, or for a project that you're working on, or just between your friends and family, I think, this short-term pain, long-term gain is a helpful approach to take. A helpful thing to keep in mind is, it's not always easy to encourage people around us to get on privacy conscious tools and sort of alternative apps, you could call them. It's not always easy to convince people why it's handy to download this extra app like Signal instead of using WhatsApp. And it requires a little bit of a conversation. And I think not everyone gets on board with that, and that's not your fault at all. If you're trying to instigate that change and be that catalyst for change, there's only so much you can do in terms of educating others, talking to others about what the options are, and then it's up to the others to also decide to get on those tools. And I think this last quote is very helpful as well. These two models describe the situation we're in. Either we have to eat fast food or grow our own. The former is convenient but not very healthy. The latter is better for us, but is time and skill intensive. So this is exactly, as I mentioned before, for example, with the video conferencing tools, I think like Zoom, for example, is a great example of fast food because it works, it's quick, you download it, it's done, but it comes with it many risks, many downsides. It's especially when we're looking at using it regularly, let's say in private meetings, let's say with human rights defenders around the world. It definitely comes with it risks and potential harms. And it's just unfortunate that occasionally some of the tools feel more like you grow it yourself. With a tool like Jitsi Meet for video conferencing, I think that's kind of a nice in-between in a way, because it's available, it's easy. You send someone the link, you don't have to sign up for anything. But even with that tool, we have found that using it in certain parts of the world, and also, within Europe and as well, that there are a certain number of people we have on the call before it starts to get kind of scratchy. We can't really hear everyone super well. Maybe some people have to turn off the video. All that to say, I don't want to discourage anyone, of course, from exploring alternative tools, because like I said, the benefits are so great. And, you don't have to be talking about like this big secret or like nuclear physics. But the point is that we are, we all have a freedom of privacy. And I think that although sort of the convenient fast food options for tech don't usually honor our right to privacy, that we definitely do have that right to privacy, no matter what it is we're talking about or doing. And just knowing that those options are out there, that there are many options, in fact, out there. And I'll point out some more, I think, throughout the presentation. But I just wanted to note here, in case I don't note it later, that on my particular project, the Data Detox Kit, which I'll talk about in a sec, we actually have a whole page called the Alternative App Center. So if you're looking for a tool, even if you just want to change one tool, you don't want to make a big effort, we do have a few options there. Your browser, your Maps app, Really, there are a lot of different ways that you could take that. So to get into some of our projects, especially when we're looking at digital innovation at a design conference, I think it's very clear in my mind why I would start by talking about the Glass Room project. So I'm really hoping that there's someone here who has heard of it. It's really fantastic. It's an interactive pop-up exhibition on data and privacy, and it raises public awareness about how digital technologies impact society. The website is the Glass, but I will sort of walk you through a little bit. So I'd like to set the stage. Okay, so just imagine you are walking with your friend, okay, pre-corona time. We need to use our nostalgic memories. You're walking with a friend down a busy shopping street. There are many stores that you can walk into, buy some things, and keep walking. You walk across a new shop that you haven't seen before called the Glass Room. And the windows are glass. Everything inside is white, like in this image. It looks like an Apple store. And you see some tablets, you see some technology, and you stumble inside with your shopping bags and you want to know what this is all about. And it looks like a tech store, but actually nothing is for sale. It is a free exhibition, which is available to members of the public who are available in that city, on that street, at that time. Typically, they come in by accident. Occasionally, they read about it in the local magazine or newspaper. And every piece of tech, every poster is basically visualizing, is showing data, is showing digital privacy, is showing digital security, is showing topics that are very complex in a more tangible way. So this is a picture from the Glass Room, New York in 2016. And I'll show you some of my favorite exhibitions. So just to give you an idea of what you would find in the Glass Room. So this is called Forgot Your Password. It's a piece by Aram Bartol, and it was displayed also in the Glass Room San Francisco last year. We had in late 2019, but it's been displayed also in the Glass Room in, I think, London and New York as well. And so what this is in 2012, LinkedIn had a data breach where millions of passwords were leaked, and kind of sparing all those details. Basically, this artist wanted to find a way, or I shouldn't put words in the artist's mouth. I should say, from my perspective, the artist was trying to visualize what a data breach actually means. Because I think when the average person hears data breach, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Like maybe, okay, they'll know about that might mean that they need to change their password, but maybe it's tricky to really understand the full context, not only of data breach, but also the number millions, millions of passwords were leaked. What does that even look like? Well, this artist, Aram Bartol, he published a number of volumes of, as you can see, these really big, thick hardback books, and they're organized alphabetically. You open them inside and you can see here how dense the text is, very small, and it's just all the passwords. And so in the Glass Room San Francisco, people crowd around the table, look through, open the books, they touch the books, open the books, and typically, quite often, people find their passwords. And it's kind of no surprise because a lot of the time people use the same kind of common passwords or the same types of common meshing together of like year of birth, pet's name, maybe a common pet's name, things like that. So this is one piece. Another piece, this one, Alexiety, sort of like anxiety and Alexa, these words mesh together. This what is by Median Grupa Bitnik, and low jack. And this in particular was displayed at the Glassroom San Francisco. And this one is hard for me to describe without you hearing it. But of course, you know, it's an art piece. I really encourage you to look up Alexiety and the creators of this in order to see if you can find a clip of it and hear it. But basically, it's just imagine like techno music. I don't know if my description will do it justice, but a sort of techno that's been mixed with Alexa commands, like real Alexa commands. And when you play it loud enough near an Alexa, occasionally the Alexa will understand the commands, but it does it in a way in these songs where it confuses Alexa. So it's not simply giving her commands, it is confusing this voice assistant. It's I think named very accurately, Alexiety. You know, it makes you feel a certain way because it's very like industrial sounding, and it's something that you listen to and have an experience with. Maybe you don't listen to it while you're laying down on the couch, but in this space, it really sets a scene. And we've been looking at different senses, like looking at the book, opening, touching the book, listening to Alexiety, and now let's talk about our sense of smell. This one is called Smell Dating by Tiga Brain and Sam Levine, and this was displayed in the Glassroom San Francisco, which also took place last year in 2019. And essentially, it's based on quite some research. I would really recommend, if you're interested in this, to also look it up. But basically, it kind of plays with the idea of a dating app, where rather than the pieces of intersection, or the pieces of how you would relate to another person, typically it might be like what interests you have, what your background is, what job you have. Maybe these will all tell another algorithm or inform another algorithm into selecting certain matches. Actually, smell dating is more about sense of smell, because this is such a strong way of indicating or of deciding who our perfect mate might be. Sometimes there are smells which really turn us off and deter us, and some which are very interesting and attractive to us. And so in this exhibit, these little blue tongs here, you take a little tweezer, you open jar number 1, you take out the smell. It's like a little, basically, cutout of a t-shirt, which somebody wore for, I think, a number of days, like maybe 5 days or so. Don't quote me on that. They wore this shirt so that their smell really got into it. And then the artist cut out the pieces, put them in these little glass containers. And so you take one out, you smell it. And then in this app, you rate what that smell was like for you. I remember that jar number 7, the smell was it really made my eyes water in not a good way. Whereas I think it was like 1 and 3 were really interesting smells for me. And then after going through this quiz, this survey about the different smells and how you reacted with them, then you were able to see who was your perfect mate in the end. Sometimes it was surprising. It wasn't always very clear in the beginning who the pools of options were. And I wanted to, there's another example that I'll share. But I just wanted to know, I wanted to share these examples with you because I wanted to show you, not only so you learn more about the Glassroom and what the exhibition side of Tactical Tech is like. It's very playful, it's very hands-on, interactive, but I also wanted to sort of inform you about the place we were at in March, when we realized that these kinds of in-person exhibitions may really need a break for a while, because it's not exactly the safest place to be when you're dealing with a pandemic. And of course, as people who lead a exhibition, we have a responsibility also to think about what we offer, and we have a responsibility to keep everyone safe. So here's another piece. I think this is the last one I pulled out. It's called Quick Fix by Dries de Porter. This was also in the Glassroom San Francisco. And it's really great. It's like a vending machine, which you can see in the background. And you put in very real quarters, you put in money, and you type in your Instagram user handle, and you can either purchase likes, you can purchase followers. I mean, they are pretty, I mean, they're temporary. They come, you know, you purchase 25,000, let's say, or however many you purchase. There were options. You could put in more money for more, but then they disappear. And I think, you know, in my understanding of the piece, I think it would be, I would really encourage you also to read about it from Dries de Porter himself. But my understanding of the piece is that, you know, it's so easy to purchase these bots. These are all bots. You're not purchasing real followers, but there are lots of different places that you can do this anyway. So here's a vending machine where you can do it too. And I think part of what I gathered from it is how this, you know, how instantly gratifying this feeling of suddenly becoming popular is, even if it is not real. They're bots, right? So it's not that there are separate individuals who are all like genuinely interested in what you do. And, you know, these pictures you're putting on Instagram, your business, or maybe it's just like pictures of your cat or your dog. But even with that in mind, we had people lining up after work to go to this vending machine and buy likes and followers. And you know, we really did our best to inform people, like, you know, maybe read the placard and understand the piece before you do it. Because I was also concerned. I didn't want people to spend all this money. Like some people were asking for change for like a $20, so that they could like buy $20 worth of followers, and not everyone has that money. So I just wanted to make sure, you know, like you do know that like these are bots, right? And like they might disappear in like 2 or 3 days. And they were like, that's okay. But it's quite interesting, I think, this piece in sort of partly for anyone who has the time to give a chance to reflect on our own practices and like ask questions like, why does this make me feel a certain way? You know, but part of it too is quite interesting, because even with this knowledge that we have, it's still like a dopamine effect, you know, like it makes us feel high and good to be popular, even if it's not real. So, you know, the Glassroom has a number of versions, like really big exhibitions, like I pointed out, but also this pop-up version, which is pretty much, it is a different version of the exhibition, but it's more or less a series of posters as well as visualizations, you know, maybe videos on a tablet, games on a tablet. And we've had this displayed in the past in really cool spaces. For example, here we have the Helsinki subway station, where it was displayed in 2018 behind glass. And I think this is a really good example of the type of exhibition that now we are promoting to some of our partners to consider, is if they have a space with glass, so that people who are walking by off the street, for example, where it's very easy to social distance, can experience the glass room in some form. Here is a picture from also the Glassroom Community Edition in Accra in 2018. And I just wanted to show that we do have quite a lot, you know, of this interactivity. It's not just about experiencing, listening, smelling, touching, but there's also these pieces where you get involved, you draw to be a part of this and to explore and learn. And so, you know, this as well is something that we have also taken into consideration to make sure that anyone during not only the pandemic, but just in general now, with everything we know about germ transmission that we've learned from, that we've been educated by in sources like the World Health Organization, just considering different ways that we can better make these spaces hygienic, even beyond a pandemic type situation. And so the glass room, my colleagues also since January have been working on, they worked on creating a brand new edition called the Misinformation Edition. And originally, of course, pre-corona, it was planned to be also a pop-up with those posters. And it's still, we do have that version as an option, but in March, they very quickly had to pivot. They really quickly had to figure out like, okay, we're pretty much done designing this exhibition that we plan this way, but what if people can't display it and experience it in that way for a long time? How else can we do it? And so they created an online exhibition. You can visit it by going to the glassroom.org website. Just remember it's a Misinformation Edition, because there are some editions on the homepage, and you can see it there. And it basically looks like this, where you know, you can click on any of the posters and then zoom in, you can see them. You can click on a tablet on the TV screen here. You can watch the videos, or you can play the games. And I think this was a really nice example of a time where I was really excited about what my colleagues produced in creating a really thinking quickly in a time where we were faced with a lot of uncertainty and questions. And at the time in March, we weren't sure, is it going to last a few weeks, a few months? Of course, now we're realizing it's more like a solid couple years. So I think they came out with this in midsummer, and it's available in a few languages, including Italian. So I really do welcome you to visit this space. Just gonna check the time. Okay. You know, it was mentioned that I'm the project lead of the Data Detox Kit, and I would like to also talk to you about some of what I'm doing as well, not just about what my colleagues are doing. So the Data Detox Kit is a self-learning guide to increase online privacy, digital security, and well-being. It offers simple steps that you can take towards a more balanced digital lifestyle. The website for that is datadetoxkit.org. And I also would like to quickly describe, because I really appreciated that context was mentioned in the previous presentation by Common Interest, that I think it's quite helpful to know that, you know, also because I'm really thankful to the funders of the project, that I just wanted to mention a few. So, you know, again, we are a nonprofit, and so all of our projects individually and together as an organization receive funding from a number of different grants and funders. And, you know, we're also very careful and aware of where the money is coming from, so that we, again, make sure that we practice what we preach. And so the Data Detox Kit, it was sort of even from the inception, was created with the support, not only from my former colleagues at Tactical Tech, but also from the Mozilla Foundation, who create Firefox browser, also from SIDA, the Swedish International Development Agency, from really a number of other funders who sort of support our core funding at Tactical Tech. But also from, I really have to shout out to all of our partners. So, you know, I had mentioned before that we're an international nonprofit, and, you know, that takes shape in a number of different ways. It's not just, you know, so we're based in Berlin, and I have colleagues who are from all over the world who represent a variety of lived experiences and perspectives, but also, you know, with that, of course, there are many perspectives and many lived experiences which are not represented in my colleagues and I. And it's very important to us to work together with local partners around the world to, you know, not only sort of improve our outputs and what we're creating from their perspectives and their feedback and opinions, but also to support the work that they're doing, especially when it runs parallel to us, because we're not the only ones doing this work. We're one of many, many organizations who are fighting the good fight. And so it's important to us, especially when we receive opportunities to support partners, financially and in other ways. We definitely do our best, do our part in that way. And occasionally, I get volunteers as well who come in for the Data Detox Kit, who are educators, for example, who want to translate it into their local language. And so I try to have a role there of being really aware and respectful of people's time, in particular, when they are volunteering, but of course as well when we are partnering and we're actually able to work in a more collaborative way. But just being aware of people's time in general, being aware of people's situation, realizing that I don't know what situation they're dealing with, either locally, maybe something is very particular about their lived experience, about the government, about whatever. So just making sure as well that I am, working with encrypted email, and just working in an overall thoughtful and respectful way to the best of my ability, but also learning whenever I do make mistakes, apologizing, learning, and doing better next time. So, sorry, with all that said, we are working at Tactical Tech. My colleague is working to create a partner page on tacticaltech.org website so that we are better able to uplift and amplify the work of our partners. For now, it doesn't exist, so take my word on it. And on each language website on the About page, you can see who collaborated on that. Some languages, you'll see that there was one organization we worked with closely. On others, for example, our Latin American Spanish website, we have really a number of partners who collaborated and helped us make that a reality. So in 2019, I had the really wonderful opportunity to rebrand the Data Detox Kit. I wanted to bring in a lot of colors and make the sort of visual identity of the detox, make the visual journey very particular, I wanted it to feel very open and free and like choose your own adventure, like your tech, your way, like you make that choice. I'm not going to judge you on what tools that you use and don't use, because I think that the what is right is different for every individual depending on what their circumstances. So we worked with this great Italian artist, actually, Alessandro Cripsta. He created a number of really beautiful landscapes that we have been able to use to differentiate the different sections. He created in particular ones for our privacy section, security, and well-being. And then from there, we were able to work with our in-house, my colleague who's a designer, to create a couple of more landscapes that work for other areas, such as our new misinformation section and our youth and families section. This is just sort of a quick blink overview of the website. I just wanted to point out that currently it's available in 22 languages, also in Italian, plus languages. I am currently working with a number of partners and volunteers who are working on, I think, 5 additional languages. It really keeps growing. And part of what is important for me is in trying to make that community space is realizing that, so this is a Creative Commons project. Creative Commons is a really helpful tool in making sure that it's really clear that, anyone can use this project as long as they're not trying to sell it. And then we're happy, non-commercial, non-derivative, but I really want to open the space for anyone. Let's say, we've had someone in a remote village in Myanmar or in a big city in India, or, really wherever wherever people are, I want someone to see themselves in this project. And part of that, with a project that is heavily based on writing and words, is having languages available and being able to get, you know, your foot wet, stepping into the content. So in all the languages, not all of the guides, not all of the articles are translated. Sometimes you'll only have one article, but it's a start, you know, at least people can have some information when they join. So I welcome you to go to the website and check it out. You know, we have resources that are geared towards adults, but we also have this youth resource, which is highlighted in pink here, which they're like PDFs that you can download and print on a home printer. And they're really perfectly, I think, very well formulated by my colleague for 11 to 16-year-olds approximately. But really, I think it's good for like middle school, high school age, pretty much. And it's a very sort of interactive, kind of gamey way to explore the topics of privacy, security, and well-being, and combating misinformation too. So I wanted to show as well that, you know, we have a variety of different formats of the projects. And I think this is really relevant, especially when we're looking at like different ways of community building, because I think not every place is dealing with the same situations or circumstances. And, you know, sometimes we do have people who are more comfortable, of course, reading paper than they are reading on a screen. And so we have a few different versions of these like printed paper kits. The one I have here, I call it the exhibition version because I think it's sort of, I call it the fancy version in my head, but actually the only reason I say that is because it requires going to like an actual design printer because they're like uncommon paper sizes. But as I mentioned before, you know, we have PDFs on the website, which can be printed on any home printer. These are full color here, but the PDFs we have on the website are low ink. You know, it was important for us, especially after receiving feedback from earlier iterations of the Data Detox Kit, it was important for us to recognize the fact that when people are printing at home or in a low budget situation, they're not looking for full page color because that stuff's it's expensive and it'll use up all your ink. So the PDFs on the website are all sort of low ink versions. They just have either monocolor, like one or maybe two colors maximum per page. And this is how those ones look. You know, they're printed on like double-sided A4. You can fold them in half. And these can be quite helpful, you know, also in an exhibition type space, or we've had them in libraries. They'll print out a bunch of them for people to just take as they leave the library. But I think, again, you know, right now we're looking at more people visiting the digital version just because of the circumstance that we are in, where people are not so much going in person and more so looking on their own. And of course, you know, pre-corona time, I was very excited to do many workshops in person. And I know that, I think it was Nina who mentioned this morning about how virtual workshops are very different. And it's true, I've had the same exact experience. It's not one-to-one. I'm not just taking a workshop that I once facilitated in person and just doing it over a video call. It's very different because the way that you engage people is different online. I think, you know, there's also like an emotional pacing that's a bit different. Like, I think it's exhausting to be on a video call all the time, especially if you're like me and I use these sun lamps, daylight lamps, when I'm in a workshop, especially so that you can see my face. And it's exhausting. Like, it's like this bright light in your face. So it's not, you know, it requires more breaks. It requires a different kind of collaborating, a different type of speaking up, you know, rather than putting people in groups together in one room. I'm putting people in breakout sessions where they're going to a completely different room. And I think, you know, although they sound very similar, very close, it's a very different vibe. And I'm sure, you know, all of us now have experienced at least participating in a workshop online at this point. It is very different and quite exhausting, but it can still be really meaningful. And it can still be, you know, when it's paced in the correct way and when it's flexible to the needs of the participants, then I think it can be really successful, really interesting and captivating. And I'm still learning. You know, I've given quite a lot of workshops at this point online now, but I'm still learning. With every single workshop that I'm giving, it's a different setup. You know, it's nice when I can see everyone's faces and we're all talking, and it's nice, but occasionally half the people turn off the video or everyone turns off the video, like in this case, and I'm like talking to a void, but like, how do you make that interactive? And that's a key piece of a workshop, is like a participatory session where there's participation, you know, so that it's not just like a presentation or a lecture. So I just, for me, these are very relevant things that I'm grappling with and constantly iterating on, and also training other trainers and opening these dialogues and listening to what some of the other experiences with trainers are too, because I'm not only training in workshops like end users or just general public, it's also occasionally educators, librarians, and they also have their own experiences, especially with their own particular audiences, you know. And so with that said, you know, this is sort of the most current thing that has been on my mind. Just this last week, I announced these Data Detox Kit curriculum, which because the Data Detox Kit project is Creative Commons, and because the point of the Data Detox Kit project is to reach as many people as possible and like help people find their own balance with using technology while also becoming more private and just more aware. You know, I also don't create curriculum that is only used by me, that I'm like hiding. I also create curriculum to share and for other people to take on, to adapt, to run with. And so I announced this last week that there are a number of curriculum, like 6 workshops, I think, including a couple small presentations, which are available with the slide deck and the outline. And sometimes the outline, like I went full script or like pages of script if you don't know what to say and you're learning. And this is helpful for some educators who are in a hurry and don't know about this topic. They can, you know, pick it up, read it once and maybe feel better about it. These are available to anyone who emails the Data Detox Kit email address, which is available on the website. And basically, I'm offering these workshops in exchange for feedback. Like, that's all I want, is just feedback. I want to know how they go because I want to make them better, because my goal is to put a page on the Data Detox Kit website where all of these slide deck outline workshop packs are just living and anyone can get them anytime. So I think I'll probably release those in like December. That's the goal. And hopefully that works out. And hopefully by then I'll have received enough diverse voices of feedback and experiences to try to make them better, try to make them more inclusive, definitely, really as much as possible before they go sort of live, you know. So I welcome anyone who's interested in those to also reach out through the website so that I can share them and get your feedback and incorporate your feedback. And just sort of, I'm just trying to be aware of time. Just in the last little stretch here, I just want to mention the other projects that we have. And this data and activism project, I think, might be interesting to a number of people listening in. So this is a project which turns research into engaging materials for organizers and organizations to self-evaluate how to engage with personal data. So, for example, if you are planning a workshop or a a camp or a festival, and you would like some ideas on how to be a little bit more careful with data privacy, with inclusivity. I think that they're PDFs that you can download and print. They're quite helpful because I'm sorry, part of the URL is covered for me here with the, but I hope you can see it, our data ourselves.tacticaltech.org, and it's a data and activism project. And yeah, I think it's quite helpful because they're interactive. So it's not just like reading a set of articles or research papers. Actually, these are bite-sized. They're like little gems of wisdom that you can do, and you can interact. Like here, there's a monster app match. It kind of makes a game out of different tools that you would use, like Eventbrite, for sharing events and having people register. A couple of other screenshots here. Here is a screenshot of how to invite your participants, some different things to keep in mind, privately, publicly, maybe some risks of different types of events or benefits of events. These are really opportunities for an organizer to reflect. And, we don't always have the answers for you, but it's I think, a good chance for you to reflect on what's important to you. So here's again that monster app match. And it talks about like the data that's collected, the data that's shared. Here, how to create your event social media policy. These topics that can seem really overwhelming for an organizer, I think are broken down in a very easy to digest and understand ways. And then this project, Exposing the Invisible, is another one that we have at Tactical Tech. A lot of the projects that I have just mentioned have more of a, I feel like they have quite a lighthearted approach to things to try to reach as many different, as general of a audience as possible. Exposing the Invisible, I think, is really fantastic for anyone who is looking to deepen their knowledge. It's uses activities, films, they have so many videos, guides, a bank of resources. Exposing the Invisible aims to encourage transparency and accountability and to make investigation accessible to everyone. And I've been exploring in the last week, in particular, partly their website, exposingtheinvisible.org, but they have another one called kit.exposingtheinvisible.org. And I've been exploring the kit in the last week, and it is so thorough, so fantastic. It really walks you through that anyone can be an investigator, that in fact we're already investigators by being inquisitive, by asking the right questions, but they also are very aware of the risks of investigating in anywhere in the world. So they have a lot of safety tips there, which are super important. So please check it out if that's interesting for you. And then finally, our last project, which is active right now, is Data and Politics. And this is a research project that explores how political campaigns around the world are making use of personal data and what impact these methods have on the integrity of democratic processes. So as you can see, this, I've mentioned a lot before, data, privacy. This project is focusing specifically on the connection between data and politics and elections. And they have done a number of country study reports with partners from around the world to explore how different governments or just different groups, I should say, many times they were like sort of private interest groups, have worked and created targeted advertising or geo-fencing to encourage people to look at certain controversial subjects in a certain way and encourage the voting in a certain direction. And it's really interesting. It's a very thorough research project. All of it's available online. And I really encourage you to check that out too. Just in general, it's very good to know, especially, if you're curious about how it is looking in a certain country, take a look at it. That country may have already had a research report based on it on this website. So this is also our data ourselves.tacticaltech.org, but the project here is data and politics. And then across all of our projects, one of my colleagues is creating a youth initiative. And I mentioned it a bit with the Data Detox Kit. She's also doing quite a lot more work in, her aim is to really involve youth in the discussion and like put them on the forefront in making decisions and how they would like to see the world when they're adults and looking for jobs. What world do they want to live in? So this is a very new project. It doesn't have a website yet, but there are a number of articles on the Tactical Tech Medium page, which my colleague Daisy has already published, which are very interesting. So thank you so much for listening to me talk so much about the projects that we work on. And I really hope it was interesting for you and that, you were able to gain some new ideas.
Thank you so much, Safa. It was a great presentation. I personally really enjoyed the fact that the material that you've talked so far is a free download and available to everyone. And I think that the fact that you as an organization want to make digital more inclusive, and we have also talked during the last weekend about the fact that design, today design is a middle class privilege, and also being able to work in this field is something that not everyone can let themselves do. And I believe that the work of Tactical Tech and your contribute obviously is something that makes it a little bit more accessible to everyone, which is really great.
Thank you so much.
I was wondering, how do you think it happened that we are now in the need of a detox from data?
Well, yeah, I think it's something that isn't only now, of course. The Data Detox Kit, actually, my former colleagues created it way back, I think in 2016 was like the very early version of it. So we're already 4 years into this project, looking at the 5th year coming up. And, I think the sort of biggest point that I would make about why the data detox is needed is, the sort of the business model on the internet is very popularly on collecting data, and these groups such as data brokers, you can call them, sort of like bank brokers, but data brokers, they collect data and create patterns about what kinds of people we are through our activities on social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on dating apps, really across the internet. And then these data brokers create these patterns, and these patterns are used in a variety of different ways. So for example, one way the patterns are used are in informing how political organizations or political groups can target us. So let's say for one person, they might receive an ad which is really happy. It's like a family walking in a field holding hands, whereas maybe their neighbor or their friend is receiving an advertisement from the same organization, the same group, which is like kind of scary and has dark colors and is like, stop it now. And like, it, has this like demanding language on it. So I think, the data detox, I would say the point at which I help encourage people to do a data detox is quite at a basic level. But actually the topics and the troubles, the struggles with this business model run much, much deeper. And I think, of course, there is only so much that we can do as people who are using these apps and these tools. But I think a lot of the responsibility is also on the companies who are creating this, who are like creating this bubble that, or this feeding into this model, this business model. But I don't have answers on how that can change, because I'm not the right person, of course, to say how that can change. So that's why I focus on what a like everyday person can do. And some of the tips that I have are quite helpful and run quite deep. For example, installing an ad blocker on your browser, like uBlock Origin or Privacy Badger. And these can help us at least to turn off the ads when we are just on our browser on a website. So like on Facebook, if I use Facebook, I don't use an app. I use it through a browser that is private, and where I, clear all the cookies and the cache and everything when I'm done, and also where I'm using an ad blocker.
Okay, this is very, very interesting. I think it's not something that we've thought about, and now that you're talking about this, I was thinking that I'm not using Facebook properly, so that's probably
well. I also don't want to criticize too. I think I wouldn't necessarily say that there's like a right way or a wrong way to use an app, because actually it depends on who you ask. There are, of course, in a real ideal, like private digital security way, I think or digital privacy way, I should say, people would not use Facebook at all. They wouldn't use social media at all. But of course, in our connected world, that's not so realistic for everyone. So I think there isn't really a right way. It's the way that's right for you in particular.
So talking about data and privacy, what do you think is the role of it when it comes to circumstances of danger? So obviously it could be related to COVID situation, but then also I think about maybe migration issues and other social problems.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really big question, and I think it alone can have its own like day-long talk, also by my colleagues who are more expert in that topic than I am. But from what I can say is that indeed data collection is seen everywhere. I mean, the examples I brought up was Facebook, Instagram, Google, but when we're looking at social dilemmas, I mean, I hate to say, I mean, it's a Netflix film, but I mean, just the term, like, it is a social dilemma, all of data collection. And, for example, you mentioned migration. I mean, there are like projects which are existing, which do like retina, like iris scanning in order to determine someone's identity, who is a migrant or a refugee, in order to receive goods or services, for example, food and shelter. And, part of why they do that is sometimes people don't have the papers, but I think there are bigger questions there about, sometimes you can use data for social good, but they have to be used so carefully, and it needs to be thought out, all of the different ways that this could cause harm, and that collecting this data in this way and storing it in this way, how could that have a negative repercussion? And, this kind of goes back to all of the work that's already out there. For example, there is a project called Tarot Cards of Tech. And these are also available online. You get them if you just put in your email address, but I've noticed they haven't sent me spam. So I highly recommend. And basically these tarot cards are really great for any designer or anyone creating a new project to look through, because they're asking some of these critical questions which don't always have a very clear answer. How could this create harm for this group or this group or this group? And I think that's very helpful. It's more just, it's not always that we have a clear answer about that. It's more just that those questions need to be asked, and that sometimes it's a trade-off again, right? Like, yeah, it's tricky. It's such a big topic. And in Corona, we see like with the COVID-19 tracer apps, that we've seen some of them have done a really fantastic job at not collecting too much data, at storing the data locally just on your phone and not in an external server. But we've also seen in some locations, this being the very opposite, where these tracers are actually, there are a lot of questions being asked about how is this data being used? Why is it being stored on a remote server, etc. So I guess I just really bring more questions and answers.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you is, in which way do you believe digital interaction models have influenced our way of interacting in person? This is similar to what I've proposed to Common Interest previously, but I also wanted to hear your opinion.
That's a good question. I mean, I guess it really, I guess it kind of depends on in what particular way you're talking about, because of course I've experienced it myself that, typically, right, I would be also at this conference, I'd be sitting next to you, our chairs would be close together, we'd be holding microphones, we'd have a coffee before, we'd have a coffee after, whatever, maybe lunch or something. It's just very different, maybe the participants in the audience can ask questions afterwards and we shake hands. Of course, it's so different now when I'm just talking from my kitchen table. But I think as well, it's really, I'm trying to focus on in what ways has turning digitally become an opportunity. Because I think the challenges are really clear. I think we've all experienced them, but actually the opportunities that come out of going digital, I have found have been very great as well, especially when we are doing our best to be private and secure in connecting with people. For example, it's been amazing to participate in conferences where there are people in the audience or who are participants as well from all over the world in different time zones. And I think that's so valuable because, only last year or only in January, I was, flying to a conference, which of course is really bad for the environment. And that also limits the number of people who come because not everyone can join. But now it's so great that when we're online, that it kind of opens a door for more people to be able to join in different ways. Maybe someone feels very private. They can use a pseudonym. They can turn off their camera and then they can still participate. They can type in the chat. They don't have to even use their voice. So I think there's a lot of great ways that this comes about, but it all, I think, requires a lot of careful caution as well, thinking about making sure that we're keeping everyone safe.
Thank you. I also I have a more philosophical question probably, but do you think digital networks and information is temporary or long-term?
I would say they're long-term. So I think that any kind of digital network and information, the part for me in my mind that makes it long-term, let's say, you have a group and everything is deleted every 24 hours or something. The part that makes it permanent is that it stays in your mind, that you've connected with these people. You don't feel alone anymore. That is such an amazing thing, an amazing feeling to have. And I think that when creating these kinds of environments and circumstances, for example, the Data Detox Kit project, at some point, this project is going to retire, and I'm definitely going to be sad about it, but that doesn't make the connections we've all made through this project any less real. They're going to play out in a different way, and they're going to grow and manifest over time into something different. They'll become something else, but I think actually any kind of these connections we have, they stick with us,